Welcome to the second episode of Marketing by the Minute, Season 4, Breaking Barriers, brought to you in part by the students of Dan Purdy's Integrated Marketing Communications class. We're here, we'll be meeting with alumni from diverse backgrounds in the hopes of breaking the barriers of entry to the marketing community and building bridges to meaningful connections and stories from those we admire. I'm your host, Kyle Berg, and today we'll be joined by our alumni guest, TJ Payne, and student representative of the Out in Business Club, Ted. Today, I'm joined by TJ Payne, a first-generation alumni. TJ graduated in 2021 with a degree in marketing. Throughout this episode, we'll be exploring TJ's academic and professional career as a first-generation student and as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So TJ, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you graduated back in 2021. What have you been up to since then?
Lots of moving, lots of working. Right after school, I jumped over to Texas for a little bit, where I went to a startup that did not succeed.
Oh.
And so I moved out there for a job and got laid off within about 3 weeks.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy. And then from there, I actually ended up getting the job that I had with Amazon. And while it was remote, I figured, well, let's move back to Washington anyways and come see the friends and family. So ran back up here and been here since. After Amazon, went and did the insurance thing, and that's where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. And you're a marketing specialist for Ethos Insurance?
Yes, I am the sole marketing person for the company.
Oh, wow.
So marketing specialist is my official title at this point. I'm doing everything from project management of building our entire new website that recently launched. I lead the blog writing and editorial, technical writing, guidelines, this, that, everything you can think of for the entire company.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm curious, what got you into marketing in the first place?
So it's very silly. There were really two things that kind of locked it into my head when I was younger. Then I abandoned the idea and then came back. So I'll start all the way back and say, one, there was a dumb TV show on TNT when I was a kid. It was about marketing teams, and it was about, you had like the ad writer and then you had the visuals guy. So it was really about advertising, but I just thought marketing. I didn't really understand the difference, but it was just a dumb, fun show that I liked. And then I had actually won some radio contest where I got to go on a little yacht cruisy thing put on by a local radio station that was sponsored by, I think it was like Bud Light or something. I was like 16. I definitely shouldn't have been allowed on there, but I was there. And I got to talk with the guys that were in charge of that campaign. I just happened to meet the two marketing heads of that whole thing. And it was like when they started doing the, the little blue iceberg or something, the mountains turn blue on the can, something like that.
Oh, cool.
But I got to talk to those guys, and I thought that was really fascinating. So I kind of fell in love with all of the ideas of marketing and advertising when I was around 16 or so. Then really sowed my wild oats and just tried my hand at playing music and acting and all these different things for a while. Eventually decided, no, I really do want to go give this a real try. And especially going to school, I didn't start going to Western until I was in my mid-20s. I really had already discovered a lot about myself and my rather interdisciplinary interests. So from there, marketing made the most sense once again as something where you get to borrow from a little bit of art, a little bit of history, a little bit of psychology, mathematics, and it's a really just great applied everything field.
It's really intuitive and it's really intuitive and versatile marketing. It's pretty unique compared to, my opinion, all the other business majors out there. No hate to any of them, of course. And then how would you describe your journey as a marketer at Western?
So at Western, it was definitely interesting. So I came in with an associate's degree that I had slowly picked away at starting in high school. And then again, it took me until I was about 24, 25 to actually finish that associate's. By the time I came to Western, I was probably trying to run through everything a little too fast. If I could caution anyone away from that, I absolutely would. Take your time. So within my gosh, my second quarter at Western, I was already starting to take marketing classes, despite having not taken stats classes yet. I was getting special permission to take different things, and I was playing a lot of catch up at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah, so I moved through and did summer quarter for the intro to marketing class with Kat, which was great. And I highly recommend summer quarter to anybody who's trying to speed through things just a hair faster without going too breakneck.
Yeah.
That really put me on a trajectory where I was able to graduate within a tight 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, small class size, it was great. There was maybe 12, 15 students in the whole class, so I got to, as the one person in that class that was moving forward with marketing as my degree in particular, I was able to really pick Kat's brain the entire time. It was
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
Right after that, I did, I believe, what was it, 381, 382, I think is your kind of first foundational marketing class. That was Kat and Dan. And then from there, I started just loading up. I took every single marketing class that was offered,
Wow.
with the exception of, I forget if it was like a sustainability or like sports marketing, something like that. There was like one marketing class that just didn't line up with everything else I was trying to do. But otherwise, I ate up every single class in that program. Didn't miss any of them. I was taking 2 to 3 marketing classes per quarter for a lot of my time there.
Mm-hmm. So, wow. So it kind of sounds like you kind of struggled at the beginning. I myself have done that as well. For me, it was a slower pace, and now here I'm playing catch up again. So it's cool to see that you have a very similar story, but I love that you were really passionate about marketing once you kind of introduced to that with Kat and Dan in 380, 381, and 382. That's really awesome to hear. And then I want to move to a bit more sensitive topic. How do you say that being a first-gen student and LGBTQ plus member may have impacted that journey?
So, I want to think about how I say all of this. So pardon me pausing for a moment here.
Yeah, of course. Take your time.
So first generation, within my family, education was highly valued, though nobody had formal education. My father never had the resources, and my mother probably could have gone to school, and she's exceptionally bright. Her whole line of the family, my grandfather on her side, aced the SATs when he was a kid.
Wow.
Got like 100%, and they made him retake the SAT because they thought he cheated, and then he did it again. So
wow.
He got 100% on his SATs twice. They're wildly smart. My sister got that, not me. But she unfortunately grew up in a part of Montana at a time where she was really told there was no reason for her to go to college. So she could have and just didn't. As far as my experience, I think the biggest struggle is that when you don't have, if you don't have elders or really people that you can lean on for experience, then they don't know how to help guide you through that system.
Right.
Whether that be the challenges of application or financial aid, oh my gosh, is so important. Most students have no idea. I've come back home and coached many of my friends who, similar to me, weren't in a financial situation to go to school, how to go to school. They didn't know that the Pell Grant existed. That's extremely important.
Yeah.
Things like that. So you're missing out on a lot of resources. Again, that experience and, gosh, just the challenge financially. And on top of that, when it's time to find a job afterwards, there's no two ways around it. Nepotism still plays a huge role over meritocracy in how you find a position. If you don't have parents or, again, close family members, close friends that can help land you those positions, it's really challenging. So absolutely, every student out there, if you haven't done so yet, please, please, please go in, have real appointments with the Financial Services Center, talk with the Career Services Center. They're both going to be able to help you a lot. And especially with financial services, the thing that I didn't know is I was working full-time as a waiter to support myself. So on paper, and then I think because of my parents' finances, not that they were helping me, but on paper, it looked like I shouldn't get any aid, when in reality I needed a lot of aid.
Yeah.
So by working with financial services, they were able to realize, like, oh my goodness, not only does this guy not have the money we on paper officially think he has, but his situation's kind of crazy. This guy needs significant aid to be able to be a student, and I was able to get it. So seriously, everybody, please, if you're in that situation, don't hesitate. It can be the difference between getting through school and not. As far as LGBT, I'll say I never experienced real issues being LGBT in Western. Again, I'm a little bit older. I'm 30 right now at the time we're recording this. So any sort of LGBT issues I had were really high school and prior. Which I think a lot of the audience watching this will likely be more recently, will have more recently been in high school than myself. And I can't really speak as to what that experience looks like today because it's been 12 years since I graduated. As far as resources, I really did just find, I was fortunate. I had a great just queer community that I could rely on. When I moved to Bellingham, I already had a queer friend or a queer couple of friends that had moved up to Bellingham, and my cat's doing crazy things, right?
Hey.
So I was able to find community through them and through the different queer network that they had already sort of built up. Also, I was going to school with half of my time being, half of it was spent during COVID. So there just wasn't a lot of community resource in that regard. So I wish I could speak more to it, but I really can't. It didn't factor in terribly significantly to my experience. I'm sure there are places where it did, but it didn't occur to me as often.
Right, for sure. And that's totally okay. Everyone's experience is going to be different. Now, you did give some advice for some first-gen students about talking to financial advisors, talking to advisors in general, kind of building that mentor for you. And you mentioned also like kind of not having that network outside of college to land that first position. So having that while you're in college would be probably really beneficial. I chatted with there's a new club out in business. It is a LGBTQ plus club in CBE. So all the CBE majors can congregate and be together and share their experiences. I chatted with some of them, and a lot of them have this experience or perspective where they express fear and discomfort in expressing themselves. So much to the point where some dread the idea of the water cooler talk, where it's like, they ask, what are your plans? And it's like, I'm going out with my boyfriend or going out with my girlfriend. And it's like, I didn't, so they kind of dread that whole thing. Do you have any advice for some who may be kind of struggling with that internally?
Oh, gosh. That is going to be everybody's personal journey. And something that I certainly sympathize with and really empathize with. I have taken to a point, I don't necessarily recommend this for everyone. It's going to be depending on who you are and your own comfort. One thing that I've noticed within the professional world, this is before marketing and since marketing, I actually usually try to bring it up during the interview, which is not necessarily advised. It's a risk that I'm personally willing to take. But I have to be really careful with how I say this. I've worked somewhere before where when I did eventually come out at a company Christmas party, I was let go rather suddenly about a week later.
Oh, no.
So I cannot necessarily say that that is related, and I can't necessarily name where that was for well, again, I can't prove anything, so I could put myself in a sticky situation if I name any particular place.
Right, of course.
I think Dan's familiar with it, though. I think I was talking to him and rather upset when it happened.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he knows. Anyways, I decided that the pain of somebody deciding not to give me a job will never hurt as much as somebody taking away my job. So during interviews, I always, again, it's not necessarily advised, but I bring it up and say, hey, just for the record, I'm bisexual, I'm queer, whatever the term is that I use that particular day.
Yeah.
And I understand that you can't tell me for your own sake during this interview process if that's a deal breaker or not, but I need to make sure that you understand that going into this, because I have lost a position due to it before.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I don't think it's ever actually created a negative impact in my ability to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's extremely uncomfortable. It's not a fun thing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of those moments that makes you feel more othered. And again, you're kind of doing it to yourself, but somebody who's straight or cis doesn't necessarily need to disclose that they're straight and cis
Right.
in
Yeah.
order to feel safe at a job.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps with the exception if you went to go work for a queer organization, then maybe you would. I don't know. It's not my experience.
Right.
But, so that's something that I've taken upon myself. Besides that, I will say so many companies nowadays, especially if you get into larger corporations, you are dealing with companies that typically have queer communities built in. I know, like, for instance, Hershey's has a queer community where people who are queer in their offices actually have like kind of a more or less like a group they can go chat with, and they do their own networking. Sorry, I've got a cat knocking over a laptop.
You're okay.
SAP Concur is supposed to be another very inclusive place, and they bring very like German ideals into everything. So there's community built in and out. I think they even have some sort of events where you can go like volunteer and they'll do like matched pay while you're volunteering. There's lots of different things, especially at more corporate levels. Yeah, so gosh, it's be choosy about where you work. I'm going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Be choosy about where you work and really think about the company culture and ask. One of the best things you can do during an interview is ask hard questions. The harder questions you ask your interviewer, the more likely you are to get the job. And diversity and inclusion policies are part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Make them talk about it. There was one place that I ended up actually choosing not to work at when I asked them about their DE&I, and they said, well, we're really trying to get better. And I went, well, trying to get better isn't better.
Yeah, that's not, yeah.
And I hope that they have gotten better, but that wasn't something I was willing to subject myself to, so I withdrew my application. This is one of those things, I feel like I could wax on about it for basically forever. And probably repeat myself 100 more times, but figure out what your journey is. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable temporarily in the service of making yourself comfortable for the long term.
Yeah,
I think that's
TJ.
really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and TJ, thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of students, because, I mean, for me, that sounded really impactful and really inspiring. And I'm sure a lot of students will feel the same way. So thank you again for really sharing that. That was really valuable. If it's all right, I do want to delve more into your career and your time at Western. I understand you're part of Dan's first applied integrated marketing communications class. Can I ask like what that was like and what your key takeaways were?
Chaotic. It was so chaotic. We didn't know what we were doing at all. Man, that first class, I'll tell you, the pace of study was challenging at times, definitely. And I don't know what it looks like today, but especially back then we did a whole lot of getting certifications on HubSpot and this, that, whatever. I'll tell you, as much work as it was, it also paid off just at the collegiate level. Other classes I had would then be like, oh, you need to go get your social media certification on HubSpot. And it's like, I already got it. We're good.
That's awesome.
We're taking this week off. Man, I think, I'll tell you what, possibly the best exercise I ever did in that class was when Dan had us work through, I believe it was just a buyer persona. What do you think you know? What do you know about who our target was? Because we were specifically doing something for the alumni network. And that exercise has been so incredibly important. I think about that, and I think about Kanbans basically every day of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Being able to critically analyze what you know about your customer, what you think you know about your customer, is so critically important. That's been a challenge that we're going through even with my company right now, where before I came on board, there was no real marketing person. It was just the people who are already doing this insurance wholesale thing attempting to market. And there was certainly a case of folks getting in their own way and putting the focus on themselves and thinking they knew what the value of the company was to the customer rather than understanding what the customer found value in. And that's
Right,
a major
yeah.
shift that we're going through. Even when I'm off of this, I'm getting into another 2-hour meeting where we're going over that again. Can never be understated. It's so important. The technical ability that you learn in that regard in IMC, I think, was upon the most useful. And with marketing being so interdisciplinary and with my unique position of being the one marketing person for an entire company, IMC is remarkably interdisciplinary. I wouldn't say it makes you an expert in any one thing, but it makes you very good or good enough to get started at everything. Wonderful class. Absolutely wonderful class.
One thing I like to say about IMC over and over again is that Dan standardizes going above the standard.
Yes.
Would you say that's kind of true?
Wow, that's a profound way. Yes, that's a wonderful way to say it, and I absolutely agree. Yeah, I absolutely love Dan, and I think it's so funny that his very straight, the way he speaks very straight and doesn't sugarcoat things. At least when I was there, it was scaring a lot of people. A lot of people were intimidated by it in that 181 or 381.
381, yeah.
And then as soon as you get through that, you go, oh, he's the biggest, softest teddy bear in the world. He cares so much about every one of you.
He does,
he
yeah.
wants you to be great. And no, I can't say enough good things about Dan, but you're right. Dan was one of those teachers who made me want to be better at all of my classes, and encouraged me to do so. I can't speak highly enough of Dan, or again, of IMC. And even being invited to be in the IMC class, because back then, I don't think it was a standard class yet, so it was an invitation class. So even by the fact that I was invited to participate in it, gave me not only a sense of pride, but a sense of, I have to rise to the occasion, which was really beneficial for me.
Yeah. And that's awesome. So we talked a bit about IMC. Were there any other classes that stood out to you apart from that?
Oh, man. I mean, digital, social were both really helpful. I'll say I do a lot less social in my life, given the nature of just the positions I've held.
Right.
And social is so rapidly changing. Even when I was going through social, we didn't talk about TikTok. It just, only a couple of years ago, but it just wasn't what it is today. The universal lesson that I really learned from that was, again, it relates back to really getting to understand your customer and understanding that you need to figure out where your customers' conversations are taking place and go there. So interestingly, within my world, LinkedIn is unsurprisingly the most used social network, but frankly, our customers don't really care that much about LinkedIn.
I'm noticing that, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what we do, because it's B2B, we found, and it was really strangely, my social media class lessons that helped me identify, I'm still going to do a little bit on social media, but I need to be putting that effort into where they listen, and where they listen is email. So two totally different classes. I mean, email is in the world of the digital marketing course. No matter how I slice it up, it keeps coming back to this, because I was going to say branding, which was, I would say branding and then actually CATS 382 were probably the two most exciting for me as far as I really get into the psychology of marketing.
Yeah.
So both of those were really beneficial. Any way you slice it, though, it always comes back to the same lesson. It doesn't matter if it was branding, digital marketing, social media marketing, analytics, any of it. It comes back to just throw away everything you think you know about your customer. Go learn about your customer. Every class really boils down to that when you figure out how to apply it in the actual marketplace.
And it's something we keep forgetting, but it's the key thing there is really getting into the minds of them. It's like, okay, what are they thinking? Because I can tell you what I'm thinking all day long, but they don't care about that. They care about what they're thinking. So getting into their minds, what are they perceiving, what's their perceptions, and building based off that.
Yes, absolutely. There's a great little book I read. It's a very quick, easy read. There's a gentleman who owns a marketing agency called Impact. And his book, They Ask You Answer, it's very short, very easy to read. And it's really just his marketing philosophy of really how he used blogging to turn his website around and turn a failing company around. And it's exactly what it sounds like. What's the stuff that your customer wants to know? Just go out there and answer it. If you're the source of information, they're going to come to you. They're going to continue exploring your website. And it's really good at pointing out the elephant in the room and addressing it. Bad marketing, I think, hides all of the uncomfortable.
And so we talked about your time at Ethos. You're helping them kind of, or I guess, rebrand and reorganize. What about, you worked at Amazon for a bit as a marketing specialist there as well? What was that like?
My experience was a strange one, and I think extremely atypical. I was a contract employee, and while I worked within marketing and my title was marketing specialist, it was honestly more of a marketing support role. The little bit of marketing I did was actually internal facing marketing, which was kind of interesting. Basically building out wiki pages for what my team and department did for other internal Amazon users to then go through and look at and access, so they could understand really even just chain of custody, who do I talk to get this thing done, et cetera, et cetera. That was probably where I used my Western marketing training the most in that position. Otherwise, it was a lot of Excel, a lot of very applied on the job type things, and strangely IT, which I'm lucky enough that I know some IT, but man, that was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Pretty good place to work though, honestly. I was really surprised that I had as much freedom as I did. Working remote there was pretty flawless. I only have good things to say about my time there. It just wasn't quite the job that I thought it was. But yeah, I think the nature of my position probably changed from what they thought we were going to be doing when they hired us to what they actually had us do. So I don't blame them for that, but it wasn't as marketing-y as I hoped it would be.
Right, of course. So kind of hoping to branch out and kind of, I guess, take what you've learned in school and kind of apply that in a more professional setting, I guess.
Yes. Well, and definitely I did learn. What was nice is through spending more time with Excel, I also honed in some of my analytics abilities, my statistical analysis abilities, and generated reports basically on the daily. That was extremely important and extremely helpful for what I do today, where now when I generate analytics, I don't have anybody else helping me figure out what to do. I just have to kind of go, okay, well, what now? What do we need to learn? What do we need to know?
Yeah.
So while I didn't get to do marketing the way that I was hoping to do marketing at Amazon, there were still so many important skills that I picked up from working with Amazon, and then apply them today in my marketing position.
That's awesome. So TJ, we're going to move on to our next segment called Tough Talks, where students from Morgan's Business 310 class got the opportunity to ask you questions about you and your career. Our first question here is, what are 3 of the biggest learning curves you have come up against since graduating?
Excel. I just said it, I'll say it again, Excel.
Excel, for sure.
Really, really, really get your hands on Excel and understand it very well inside. Next, it would be whatever your marketing management system is. For example, we use HubSpot. While HubSpot training modules and everything are useful, putting your hands on the software and actually getting to use it is an entirely different thing. Actually really learning how to create a workflow or an automated email campaign, any of those things. When you put your hands on it, it's trickier and less intuitive than you might think it is from going through the training modules. Last learning curve, difficult, just kind of learning curve challenge. Those two stand out. That was really the hardest for me. After that, learning company culture and how to operate within it.
Really?
I came from a lifetime of retail and restaurant work. That is very different from what you're going to do when you put on a nice dress shirt and go to the office.
Yeah.
Or if they don't ask you to wear a dress shirt and you get too comfortable and too casual. Really, learning culture is it's not talked about enough, and it probably needs to be talked about more. I don't want to disparage the class, and in fact, I'm about to sit here and say how it's actually important, but I remember going through school, a lot of people poo-pooed it. Management 271 actually teaches you a couple of important things, not the least of which, how to fight for a better salary, how to interpret company culture, how to identify how to work with different folks. For example, I directly work for the owners of the company. So the chief operations officer and the chief, I think we call it CPO, chief production officer. We kind of have our own less common C-suite names. And then our business development executive. Those are the three people that I actually work with. But a lot of what I do is manage them. So how to manage the people that you work for, that is a tricky challenge to figure out. That is there's no way to learn it but to learn it. But man, it's stressful.
It's good to know. Yeah, for sure. And then another student here asked, I feel like it's more difficult for me to network and create a presence in the business world. Is this something you've also struggled with? Do you have any advice for those who are struggling?
Yes, I've struggled with it. It gets to what I said at the beginning of this, right? If you don't have family connections, you're going to struggle with your networking. Nepotism still runs business, not just in America, it runs business everywhere. And that is a real challenge that's difficult to overcome. As far as networking, I think one of the great advantages that we have as Western students going through the marketing program is how many student projects we have, how many group projects, I should say. You might not get along with every member of every team that you're on, but try your best to and experience what it's like to be in the trenches together, because those same people are going to be the ones who write you recommendations and reviews on your LinkedIn. Those same people are going to be the ones that you can lean on when you say, hey, my contract at Amazon's coming up and I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And they go, hey, I actually started working for a recruiting company. And then they take a look at your resume for you and help you chop up your resume and make it a little bit nicer, and then you land the job that you're at today. Of course, that's all really what happened to me. Leaning on the other students you have, leaning on your teachers. Don't expect teachers, or especially if you sign up for the mentorship program, please understand, none of them are going to give you a job. I think that's something that a lot of people expect is, alumni in the mentor programs, they're going to give me a job. They won't. They can help coach you into how to find a job. They're not going to be able to hire you.
Right.
It's never going to happen. Don't expect it. LinkedIn, you should have a LinkedIn. You should pay attention to it. A big reason for that, I would say, even less than the networking itself, is as you build up your LinkedIn, you are more likely to get recruiters reaching out to you. And while they might not offer you your dream job, they might offer you something that will give you a good learning experience. My LinkedIn isn't even particularly amazing, but I see probably half a dozen people reaching out to me to say, hey, I think you'd be a great fit for this position, probably 6 times a month, give or take. So there's no shortage of positions, and that's purely generated through LinkedIn. So build up your connections. Make sure to build connections, A, with people you know, and B, with people who do things at the companies you want to work for. or in the field that you care about, or really recruiters at the companies that you want to work at. All of those are going to be really helpful tools.
It's interesting you say like getting along with your group mates and your classes. I know I am certainly trauma bonded to all my group mates from 381. Something.
Absolutely.
We have we're currently learning that like 80% of jobs are filled through networking, not even through Indeed or LinkedIn or whatnot. So building up your network, building up your network, surrounding yourself with those who are intelligent and capable and compassionate is huge. We have one more question from another student here. Can you talk about what ADEI looks like at a corporate level?
ADEI, diversity and inclusion, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was also the student that every time anybody ever used an acronym, I would raise my hand and cat.
What's that mean?
Does that mean? What's that mean might have been my catchphrase. So I have never really directly interacted with any sort of diversity and inclusion after the hiring process. Usually what I've done is, like I said at the beginning, I tend to bring up that I'm queer during the interview to make sure that it's not an issue. At which point, say, Amazon would say, oh, actually, we have a robust diversity and inclusion program. I go, okay, cool. That's kind of my check mark. And when I talk about places like SAP or even Hershey's that have resources built in, those are going to be parts of those programs. I have never had the opportunity to participate in those. And today with Ethos, we're a very small company. I think we recently went through a hiring boom, and I think we're at 11 employees. So quite small. We don't have there's no diversity and inclusion program. It's basically we're a small group of people and be nice to each other. So I can't really speak with any sort of expertise or authority on that. I will say, as far as kind of relating back to LinkedIn, if there's a particular corporation or business that you're interested in, see if they have diversity and inclusion officers and reach out to them. Those could be a great person for you to connect with, and then learn about what diversity and inclusion looks like at that company. So, let's say your dream job is at Nintendo, then figure out who that diversity and inclusion person is, or at least one of them is, and say, hey, I'm still a couple of years off from being able to get a job at Nintendo, but do you mind if I pick your brain a little bit? And even say that when you send them your connection request. You're a lot more likely to get engagement. And frankly, if you're talking about networking, people like talking, people like answering questions. Give them something to chew on and talk about. Don't approach it with, I'm applying, and how is the this and that at this location? Is Nintendo queer friendly? Like, don't approach it like that. Make it friendly, open ended. And again, really, when you send the connection request is probably the best time to open that up.
For sure. I know I got into this mindset when I first started school, and I'm still trying to shift out of it, but it's really easy to get into the idea of, oh, they're the suits, they're the big guys. You don't want to talk to these guys. They're scary. They're human beings. They've gone through everything we've gone through and more, and they're more than happy to connect and open conversation with almost anyone. So that's something really important to realize going forward.
Yeah, that's related to the entire imposter syndrome thing, right? And I would say basically everyone you talk to either suffers imposter syndrome or they're a narcissist. And there's really no in between in my experience. So you've got, roll of the dice. That big, scary suit that you're afraid to talk to, maybe they're a narcissist and that stinks. Except at least narcissists like to hear themselves talk.
Fair enough.
So they still will probably talk to you. And if they're also somebody struggling with imposter syndrome, then they're going to be looking for another human connection because there's comfort in that. Never be afraid to reach out to people, especially on LinkedIn. What's the worst thing that happens? Some person you've never talked to before still doesn't talk to you on the internet?
Yeah.
It's less consequential than commenting in Reddit. Because
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least, in Reddit, people might call you, might get angry or call you names or something. On LinkedIn, the worst thing they can do is not respond.
Yeah.
And they'll probably still add you and just not respond. It's nothing.
So TJ, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us and giving back to the students. This has been extremely insightful and impactful. If you would like to network with TJ, you can connect with him on LinkedIn at TJ Payne. Thank you for watching. That was time with TJ Payne. We want to thank him again for being on the podcast and sharing his experience with us. Now, the purpose of the podcast is to highlight the voices of underrepresented students. So now we'll be joined by Ted Jemley here, part of the new Out in Business Club, which highlight resources for LGBTQ plus members in CBE. So Ted, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So can you introduce yourself, kind of, I suppose your major, your year, and what your plans are after graduation?
Yeah, my name is Ted Jemley. I am a marketing major here with an international business minor. I am graduating, this is weird, winter of 2024. I'm a weird not at the end, That's what you get for going to a quarter school. Yeah, and then my plans after graduation are I want to work in cosmetics internationally.
Very
so
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. What drove you to want to go to cosmetics?
It was mostly the sight of people on billboards that didn't look like me and people that aren't actually real people, first of all, all the Photoshop and so I definitely want to work in advertising and marketing on that side, so yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. We'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. You were part of the founding of OIB, Out in Business. Can I ask, for those of us that don't know, what is OIB?
Out in Business is a queer-oriented and queer-driven CBE club. It's the first of its kind. There's never been a LGBTQ plus club at all in the CBE, which shocks me, honestly. But we thought be the change you want to see. So we decided to start it, me and Ethan. And yeah, it's just basically a club where we can learn and grow and form a community that otherwise really isn't here for the queer people in the CBE. Yeah.
And you helped with part of the founding. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, Ethan, my friend, my partner in crime, he basically went to a panel that was organized here in the CB called Out for Business, which was a panel of members of the LGBTQ plus community that were current students and then alumni of the CBE. And it's basically an open discussion kind of talk where anyone could ask questions, talk about their experiences, their worries, their interests, all of that kind of stuff. And Ethan felt extremely comfortable. And when he realized there was no space like this permanently on campus, he decided to, be the change and be the club and be whoever he needed to be to help people like himself and me and a bunch of others in the CBE. And I saw that, and I was like, let me help. I want to also be there for that, because it's really missing in the CBE, I think. Yeah.
I absolutely agree, and I'm thankful actually that you guys are working on this because this is something that students are struggling with. I've seen in the meeting I went to. What was it? That was the last Tuesday?
Yeah, it was Tuesday.
Yeah, I went to that, and it was inspiring to see that you guys are doing that. I was there the last meeting, and you guys were doing some really cool stuff, introducing yourself, and the open-mindedness concept of it all was just really, really heartwarming to see. What are the plans for OIB in the future?
Well, right now we're really in the foundational building stage. We want to create a community for people, and our first and foremost goal is to create a safe space for people that they can come to once a week, once a month, whenever they feel like it, just to be able to come and have a safe space, be able to get resources, and for us to really facilitate the needs of these people, for people to say, hey, I have this issue, but I don't know how to get help for it, and for us to help them get in touch with the people or speak for them, because it's scary to need help sometimes, especially when it pertains to sexuality or identity. So we really want to help build that area for them and help build their ability to speak for themselves. We also have a lot of plans to get speakers, and we really want to help just learn. We want to help people learn, help ourselves be more educated surrounding the troubles that people may encounter in their career and in the business world. Yeah.
For sure, that's awesome. And then you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Can I ask how you may have experienced your time here at Western through that?
Well, I'd say I've only been here, this is my first year here, but it's very open here. Everyone is very willing to help, and there's a lot of resources, but I think that even personally I found that it's scary to go to those resources sometimes. It's scary to ask for help and say that you need help or say that you feel confused or lost and stuff like that. So I think that I personally am somebody who is very able to ask for help for myself, but I've noticed that a lot of people aren't. And even though there's a lot of structure here, there's not that much help to get people into that structure. So I think that that's something that I really saw an issue with, and I wanted to try to help. Yeah.
And then for those students who are watching and maybe struggling themselves with all this, what advice do you have for them?
Come to a meeting.
Yeah?
Yeah, come to a meeting if you want. Also, just like, there's a lot of resources is my main thing. There's a lot of resources. The Health and Wellness Center here has a bunch of resources. They have like community art, what is it called? Group therapy. They have like art group therapy for queer people and queer students here.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of resources, and simply just digging a little deeper or asking or going to somebody you may see as a mentor who is a part of the queer community can really help and can help you get in contact and connections and help you get anything that you may need. Yeah.
Awesome. And then lastly, for students who want to attend the meeting, where and when should they go?
It is Parks Hall, room 244, Tuesdays from 6 to 7.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ted, for being here with us again today. We really appreciate the time you're here. This has been Marketing by the Minute, Breaking Barriers. If you have any further questions about OIB, you can find more information at their Instagram page at OIB_WWU. You can also connect with Ted through LinkedIn at Ted Jemley. So thank you, Ted, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the second episode of Marketing by the Minute, Season 4, Breaking Barriers, featuring alumni TJ Payne and Student Rep Ted. Make sure to follow all the marketing program socials linked below to keep up with all future episodes. With all that said, till next time.